quick brief background about myself. So I've been in crypto since 2016, and been running a wealth management company since 2012. So yeah, heavily invested. Like to think of myself as an advanced crypto user. Was early in Ethereum, and hopefully all the things I talk about are not going to be too much overlapped from what I've discussed in the past. Hopefully there's some new people too. But yeah, so I'll just get into it. So the early Hex days, I was in the chats in 2019, maybe into 2018 when Richard was talking about creating a coin. And at the time, he was really active. He was in the Telegram chats. He was asking people what we should do. You know, at the time it was called Bitcoin Hex. He would send memes. He would send gifts. He would create gifts of himself. So that it was a really fun time at the time because you could really just get a glimpse into his mind and what he was thinking as far as creating Hex. There was a lot of input there talking about how to best do the Bitcoin free claim, the fundraising aspect of it through the AA lobby. So yeah, so Hex began in 2019, November 2019. It did the fundraising similar to EOS, where it had a lobby. At the time, everyone was saying it was a scam. And at the time, ETH was trading at $100, $150. And the first day, it got, I think, 20,000 Ethereum at the time. So it was like a couple $1 million, and everyone was amazed how much money was thrown in the first few days. Even people that were calling it a scam were tracking it and saying how like it was ridiculous how Richard got this much ETH and all that. And then it proceeded to go down 95% in 33 days. So that was a lot of FUD and uncertainty at the time, and that's when a lot of people sold, and left, and or basically just wrote it off as going to zero. But really, that's where it was. Of course, the most financial opportunity was there, and Hex hasn't got anywhere close to with the previous all-time low, at least on the Ethereum side. And since then, when they was launching, there was also like the rise of Uniswap, and Hex was on Uniswap basically for vast majority of coins. It was essentially a DeFi summer then too in 2020, where all these protocols were pumping, YFI, Curve, Compound, Aave were all doing crazy numbers. And DeFi was really popping off. And in Uniswap, Hex was just constantly being traded there and also via the AA lobby. So a lot of Hexicans were the first users of Uniswap, at least in DeFi setting and in a day-to-day setting, and ended up getting a huge airdrop from that in the future. So that was very nice. Fast forward to April 2020, that's when we saw God Whale inject 10,000 ETH in a single market buy, which was quite nice. Sending Hex, I think, doubled the price of Hex in a single candle. And then, yeah, we haven't really gone back to those prices since. So thank you for that, God Whale, whoever you may be. Some speculate that could be Richard himself. That's not what I think, but who knows? And that stage too, there was a lot of gatekeeping, CoinMarketCap specifically, CoinGecko, all of also the media outlets were all just basically labeling Hex, Richard himself, as scammers, Ponzi's. But we kept, you kept chugging along. The lobby was still going on for a whole year, so it was a really long accumulation time. But we did see some ads come out for Hex. So, like we're hopefully going to see all this never seen before marketing now in 2025. Back then, some people in London bought taxi ads, billboards, buses and stuff. It was crazy marketing, I guess, scheme, and it worked out really well at the time. So hopefully we can see a repeat of that. Yeah, we got huge airdrops in the form of Uniswap coin, 1inch, other DeFi protocols that Richard at the time was really promoting DeFi protocols and what best apps to use. So that was really nice because it got Hexicans a lot of free coins, and also, of course, at the time ETH was $150 in the beginning of Hex, and then it rose to at that top cycle, rose to almost $5,000 at the peak in 2021. Of course, we had the big payday, and we saw the OA stake. I think it was like 95% of all HEX was staked at the time, or maybe even more, 98%. Um, but after that point, the OA is unstaked, and we sat for years, maybe 3-4 years almost, at a 10% global stake average. So meaning the APY, the interest that was being paid out to T shareholders or the stakers was basically, it was very high. It was on average 37%, but for the early stakers, it was high 70%, 80% APY. So for many years. And then as we know, in 2021, HEX hit almost 50 cents. People were mortgaging their houses to buy HEX at 50 cents and 30 cents, thinking it was a guarantee to go to $1. That was also just like kind of the mania at the time. NFTs were really popping off too. It was just a very special time in crypto back then. 2022, of course, you had FTX blow up, you had Luna blow up, you had interest rates go from basically 0 to almost 5% from the Fed perspective. You had stock market recession. Bitcoin went from 70K to 15K. ETH hit $800 after hitting 5K, and HEX went from 50 cents to 2 cents by the end of the year. So it was an absolute bloodbath of 2022. Everyone felt it in every market. Everything went down. Bonds went down. Gold went down. I think literally everything went down. But that was the worst of it. At least it all came at one time, really. 2023 was kind of the depths of the bear market. But then that's also when PulseChain was launched. So 2023 of May and 2023, PulseChain launched. That's when we got our copies of everything on the PulseChain side. PulseChain did very well performance-wise in the beginning. Did multiples of the launch, but then proceeded to jump 95, 98%. Also coinciding with SEC suing HEX, PulseChain, PulseX, and Richard himself. You had content creators being subpoenaed by the SEC. You had people talking to the SEC. You had Interpol allegations. You had tax uncertainty in certain countries like Finland. And then now in 2025, we had the case, not just dismissal and winning the case outright. We have regulatory certainty instead of uncertainty. We have a very friendly SEC and crypto czar, David Sachs. People can speak freely, going back to that point again, where people have free speech as far as what they can say and not say about things they like. So, the previous bear market, HEX was launched in the bear market of 2018, 2019, and then I'm sure Richard's idea was to get PulseChain out as soon as possible because he knew he was launching in the middle of a bear market, which is the best time to launch a coin or a protocol. Obviously, they're very different because one is just an ERC20 on Ethereum, and PulseChain is a whole blockchain with many different game theory and features there. But that's kind of where we stand. So that's kind of tried to do a quick summation of everything that's happened in the last few years.